Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Dom and today I'm going to be doing kind of like a first impressions, although I've tried it, but like the first impressions that I've done on camera for you guys on the Serenity palette in collaboration with Menagerie Cosmetics and Annettes Makeup Corner. I was super excited when I saw this palette, so I'm gonna get all into my thoughts and opinions during this video. If you like those kinds of things, please stick around and hopefully you enjoy it. And I will see you guys very, very soon. Okay, you guys, so I'm gonna do a quick breakdown of this palette before I actually get into the look. So this is the Serenity palette by Annettes Makeup Corner and Menagerie Cosmetics. They collaborated on a palette together and it is absolutely stunning inside and out. I have used this palette once before on my eyes and I did really enjoy the look that I came up with, so I just decided that I would go ahead and do another video talking about this palette and things of that nature. So let's just get on into it. So this is what the palette looks like. I'm trying not to blind you guys with the mirror, but this is what the palette looks like. You get 6 mattes and 6 shimmers. And they're kind of dispersed throughout the palette. I think at first glance this is like, okay, there's a lot going on with this palette. That was like probably like one of my first impressions. Like when I saw this, I was like, oh, there's a lot of colors and they're just kind of situated in the palette. So I think if you get a little bit of anxiety from this palette but you still want to try it out, I personally would rearrange the shades to whatever fits you the best, like whatever makes sense to you color wise. I did want to do that, but I wanted to leave it in the original like order just for the video purpose and everything. So yeah, I'm trying to decide if I want to swatch all of these out. I think I'm going to go ahead and do so. So I am going to swatch all of these shimmers first and then I will do all of the mattes second, but let me get a makeup remover wipe so that I don't have makeup everywhere. Maybe so, maybe no. I think I'm gonna have to take off my watch for this. So let's just go with the first row. So the first row of shimmers, the first shade is called Tranquil and is this blue shade. I actually used this shade on my first look. But it's kind of like it's a thinner formula of blue, like it's not super opaque. You can definitely still see my skin through like underneath there. And then I'm going to do the shade Evolution, which is also a shimmer. Like I said, I'm swatching all the shimmers first, which is this really beautiful green. The shade Monarch, which is the orange. So these two shimmers swatch way better than the very first one does. That first one is kind of just like a toppery shade from what I'm seeing here. So that's something to kind of keep in mind. And then I'm going to take the shade Sunbeam, which is the bright yellow, which is very stunning. It's like a very true yellow. It's not super gold leaning or anything like that. It's just a true yellow shimmer shade, which I can appreciate. Oops, kind of messed up that swatch. But that is the shade Sunbeam, in case you're wondering. And then I have 2 more shimmers and they are at the bottom of the palette. This one is the shade Chrysalis and then this one is in the shade Morpho. Chrysalis is like a purpley shade and then Chrysalis is obviously a blue. So far, all of these shades feel really beautiful, like when I'm swatching them, and that is this purple one here is Chrysalis, and then the blue is Morpho. So this is all the shimmers, I think, in the palette. Wait, how many shimmers are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I was just making sure that I swatched them all. Okay, so now I'm gonna wipe off my arm and then I am going to come back and swatch the mattes and then we'll get into this. All right, I'm back. So now we are gonna swatch all of the mattes in the palette. I'm gonna start in the top row with the shades Fluttery and Metamorphosis. Fluttery is just like a vibrant pink, like a Barbie pink shade, and then Metamorphosis is like a pastel purple shade. Just make sure my arm is nice and dry because I just don't want to like risk not a very accurate swatch. So don't know if you'll be able to see this here, but that is the shade Fluttery. And then that is the shade Metamorphosis. So those two didn't swatch lovely, but I'm pretty sure you've heard in multiple videos, I'm gonna try it one more time with each of those shades, that swatches don't necessarily mean anything because they can perform way different on the eyes. So that's a better swatch. I have used the shade Fluttery already, and I'll get into that like when I get into the eye look or whatever. And then the shade Metamorphosis is actually very stunning as well. I'm gonna go into the second row. I'm gonna take the shade Anew and then the shade Imago, and I'm going to swatch both of those as well. Imago is just kind of like this true purple. It doesn't lean too blue, but it also doesn't lean too red or pink. This is my first Menagerie palette I've ever tried. I did purchase their Whale Song palette when this palette released, but I have not tried the Whale Song palette, so as far as comparisons go to their other palettes, I'm not really sure. But this is the shade, what is that shade? Anew, and this is the shade Imago, which are in the second row. And then the very last two mattes are together in the last row, the shade Cocoon and the shade Luna, and I'm going to swatch both of those. Cocoon is kind of like an army green, olivey army greenish color. It's a lot more washed out on camera here because the light is really bright, but it is more it looks more true to color on my arm, but it's definitely more of like an olivey army green color. And then I have the shade Luna here, which is just this one here, which is kind of like a deeper shade of like lime green a little bit. So I'm going to take that one and I'm going to swatch that next to the last shade. So these are all of the mattes that are in the palette, and like I said previously, all of the shimmers. So far, all of the mattes look to be pretty promising. I did use this palette once before, and I'll get into like my own thoughts and opinions on that as I get into the look. Now that my arm looks a little stained and weird and dirty, let's just get on into this eye look, shall we? Okay, so my eyes are already primed with the Juvia's Place Eye Prep Eye Primer, and I do set that with just a white eyeshadow. So for today's look, I think that I'm going to go in with the shade Metamorphosis, which is in the first row. It is this like purpley periwinkle shade, and then I think I'm also going to go in with the second shade of purple, the shade Anew, and I'm thinking I'm going to use a little bit of Morpho and Tranquil. I kind of want to stick to the purpley blue side of things today, but you know, that could change at any moment. So yeah, I'm just using a Profusion pointed crease eyeshadow brush, and I'm just picking up some product. There is a decent amount of kick up in the pan if you tap lightly, just to make you aware of that if that's something that bothers you. It personally doesn't bother me, but it is something that I just wanted to note just in case you were wondering. I know that there was a lot of like this palette is definitely a harder palette to get. I think the original release, there was only 400 palettes that were produced and that were available for the first sale when it first released, which to me is just 400 palettes, considering how popular of a brand Menagerie Cosmetics is and then how many subscribers that Annette has. I mean, like, I personally would have released at least 1,000 palettes, at least 1,000, and that, but you know, obviously I don't know what, you know, the deciding factor was of why they came up with that number or whatever, but I was able to snag this one. I was on the website, I set a timer, and I was refreshing profusely because I wanted to try out this palette, and I just wanted to see what the, like, you know, the hype was about Menagerie Cosmetics palettes. Their palettes are always sold out, so I did pick up the Whale Song palette as well, because that was one that I always wanted. As you can see, this is a very beautiful shade. It blended so easily and it built up really, really nicely. So yeah, you can go as heavy or as, you know, light as you want. Personally, that's what I've seen from this palette, so just to give you that option. I'm trying to decide if I want to go in with the shade Anew. I think I'm gonna go in with the shade Anew next, which is this purple shade. I feel like those two would work very nicely together. So yeah, this is my second time using the purple in this palette, and I think I'm gonna enjoy it. I think I'm gonna enjoy it a lot, actually. And this purple is actually really nice. I feel like it blends pretty good for a purple. Purples are kind of those eyeshadows that, like, they're kind of hard to work with, just because I don't know what it is about it, but they just usually don't blend the hottest. So the first look that I did, it's actually up on my Instagram, but Menagerie actually did repost my picture onto their stories, and so did Annette on her stories, because I tagged her in the photo that I put up. If you want to see the look, or maybe I might still have some pictures or whatever, I might incorporate that at the very end, like show you guys the look that I created. But the first look, I used the pink shade. I used this pink here, and I used the purple, and I used Tranquil. So I kind of stuck to this little corner here, and I liked the look for the most part. I think the only color that I'm really not pleased by, well, not pleased by, but like I'm kind of like, okay, that was kind of a weird shade, is the very first one, Tranquil. I just feel like it could be a little bit more opaque personally. I feel like all the others are kind of like, you know, more opaque and everything. Like everything else swatched really, you know, nice and opaque, and that first shade, I don't know if it's meant to be a topper shade or not, I don't remember, but it just seems a little bit, what's the word? It just seems pretty sheer, to be honest. And I did use a glitter primer the first time that I used it, and it's still like, after a certain point, it's just not going to get any more opaque. So I do think that that's kind of like a little bit disappointing, but you know, to each his own. It's really like, you know, it's her palette, so obviously she can pick the formulas that she personally wants. But other than that, I personally think that this palette is really pretty. I think if you don't necessarily see creatively or whatever, I think that this palette could potentially stress you out just a little bit, just because the colors are all over the place, and it's definitely like an artist palette, if that makes sense. And I don't mean to say that in like a bad way, but I'm just saying, like, if you're somebody who definitely needs more of like a monochromatic like palette, or you need like some sort of direction, then I definitely think that you might not love this one, just because there is a lot that goes on in this palette, and I don't know, it's just a lot of colors, and it might not be your cup of tea. So I am going to prime my eyes with a little bit of eyeshadow primer, well, glitter, the NYX glitter primer, I mean. I'm just going to put a little bit of that on my lids. I'm debating if I want to use the shade Morpho, just because it is a very deep blue, and I don't want this to overpower the outer corner of my eye. So I think I'm just going to go in with a little bit of the shade Tranquil again, and you guys will see firsthand experience what I'm talking about, most likely. But I feel like for this look, I feel like it would be okay. But like I said when I was swatching these, you can see through this shade if you just put it on. So I personally recommend using a glitter primer. You don't have to, but I personally recommend it, just A, for the longevity of the shadow, be so you can get it as opaque as you want. Some people might like a thinner shimmer formula, but for me personally, I like mine nice and thick. And even like my glitter topper shades, I don't know, man. This one's pretty. It's just missing a little bit of something. I just wish it was a tad bit more glittery and just a tad bit more opaque. And I'm not saying that it has to be like super thick, but I don't think you're gonna be able to tell too much on my eyes. But if I look in the mirror, I can still see my skin coming through just a little bit, and I personally don't prefer that. Well, not my skin, but like the eyeshadow base coming through a little bit more, and I personally don't prefer that because I just want a nice canvas of eyeshadow. So maybe this would be perfect to put on top of another shade, like I said, but I don't know. So I'm gonna go in with just a little bit of that deeper blue just to kind of see what this would look like. I'm just gonna kind of wiggle that at the bottom there. I just did a little bit just to try, and I don't really love, like, I don't know if I'm gonna love how that looks together. So I'm just gonna go over it with the shade Tranquil again because I feel like that would be the best option here. Okay. So I'm gonna go off camera and do the other eye. I'm probably gonna do like my eyebrows, blush, all of that good stuff. And I might come back and do something to the lower lash line, but then I will give you my final first impression-y thoughts. 2 seconds. Okay, you guys, so this is the final look using the Menagerie and Annettes Makeup Corner Serenity palette. I really enjoyed the look that I created today. It is so pretty. If you like these kinds of colors, then I definitely recommend it. Like I was saying in the video, this is the only one that was just a little, it's really pretty, it's just not what I was expecting, if that makes sense. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed this one, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye guys.